Hey, Matt.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you?
Good, good.
Okay, so finally we are here after like two,
Yeah,
3 weeks of being away.
yeah. We had a little
So,
accidental vacation, but it's great to be
mm,
back.
yeah, of course. Sometimes just things happen, and but
Yeah.
now the important stuff is that we are here. Of
Oh,
course, the war is it doesn't stop. Luckily,
I was gonna say the
and
curiosity never stops, right? It never ends.
yeah, yeah, curiosity never ends. That's the wording. And but today topic is really 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 interesting. But we were talking about aliens, no, and about going to another planet, or maybe something coming to our planet. And the topic is, what if you were an alien visiting another planet? Why this topic, Matt? Today, Matt, what is about
Yeah,
this topic?
it's a good question. I don't know. I think this question kind of captured my imagination because of how many different directions you could go with it, right? For one, we always think of. I always think about a lot about perspective and how our perspective and we can change or shift our perspective or even borrow a perspective, right? You hear about walking in someone else's shoes. It's really just borrowing a perspective for a while. You don't, it doesn't have to be permanent, but we always think about aliens visiting our world. And it's like, what happens? And like all these aliens. And if you think about it, it's interesting because if we say if I said, hey, look up in the sky, aliens are here. We have all of these assumptions, but what are those assumptions based on? Nothing at all. You've never met an alien before, right? Yet we have all of these assumptions. So on one level, I always thought that'd be interesting is if you were self-aware, like if you knew that you would have maybe irrational or weird assumptions, untrue assumptions on an alien visiting, your country, how would that affect or change your approach to visiting a different, I said country, world, right? I need to go farther. If you were the alien visiting a different world, would you just land in their world and say hello, or would you prepare in some way? Would you try to, would you send a drone and learn as much as you could ahead of time? And what would be the process, or would I don't know. That's where kind of my mind started going. I go, we got to talk to Nestor about this. So yeah, I thought you might have thoughts like, and it's different from, or maybe it's not different from going to one country to a new country, but I think it is. And how would that affect you? And then if we can go even further, once we identify those actions that we would take or those ways we would be different or what we would search for with a new perspective, how can we then apply those same things to what we're doing in our day-to-day business or how we innovate or how we learn? Just seeing where we can, pull insights from.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because, as you said, it's not just about the movies, no, and it's not just we sitting in our homes
Mm,
just waiting for the spaceship,
yeah,
that's kind of crazy stuff with the lasers. And no, is let's try to think the other approach. What if we actually are the guys on something? I won't say a spaceship because maybe in the future will be another thing, maybe
yeah,
another stuff. Uh, Visiting another planet, and in the process of visiting another planet, visiting another species.
yeah.
How, and this is actually a very, very good question to ask for our students. Uh, what will you be prepared to? Or, or how do you prepare yourself
Mhm.
to land in another planet or exoplanet or whichever name we can
Yeah.
put it? And what will be the first thing that you will do if some kind of a species approach to you? How we define the the commonalities, and in this process I will quote uh, Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
in astrophysics, and what is common to the universe. And the only thing that is common in the universe are the law of physics. Uh,
Mhm.
and for some strange scenario, the physics will be the instrument that will allow us to communicate to each other. And is the gravity of
Mhm.
stuff, is how fast the things approach to the center of the object that you are on top
Mhm.
of top of, or how you breath, how you breathe, how do you produce energy
Mhm.
as transformation of the matter and chemistry, and not just the physics, but in
Yeah.
terms of chemistry. Uh, are, because we can make a lot of assumptions here, and we can say, no, we can talk in English. Hey, what in the world will make you think that people in other planets speak English? Yeah, the most likely scenario is they will be able to communicate with each other.
Mhm.
Yeah, sure, that's something that, in terms of physics, is true. The one object communicates to another one
Mhm.
through some kind of energy transmission, because it's physics. But the elements that you are communicating with, uh, the most likely scenario will be totally different.
Mhm.
If you remember the first space mission for humankind, we put in a black box, like the box that the airplanes are using.
Yeah.
Some of the most, in terms of our own understanding, we put music, we put images,
Uh-huh.
videos, some digital, some format that that we can use and we can touch with our hands. But we are assuming that the other species across the universe
Mhm.
will share the senses. You know, if we share music, we are assuming that the other species will have the ear sense. If we are sending something that is written on paper, we are assuming the eyes on the side of the other species. If we are sending something that you can touch, we are assuming the sense of a tactile. And that's the thing that we need to prepare to, is prepare for the unexpected stuff in another planet. And on top of that, and I think but this is the most important thing that it comes to my mind,
Mhm.
it's how we should behave in front of another species.
Mhm.
And that's very important. And I'm constructing this based on your previous information, is when you're traveling to another country, you don't speak the language, maybe, and for sure you don't know the local customs. The first question is, how do I behave? How
Uh,
should I behave? And let's go to another planet. What should I do, or how do I behave
mhm.
in terms of, not in terms, with the intention of
Mhm.
communication? I don't know. That's my initial thoughts, Matt. What about you?
Yeah, no, I'm sketching down thoughts as you're writing about all this, and I keep thinking. I think one of the things I wrote down is how much, and maybe I just got business on the mind, but how much you go this what you're talking about is like customer discovery or learning or creating a new product or creating something that's unknown, right? Like how do you go about it? Because you nailed it right there at the end, is like the communication aspect, right? How do you communicate? And that's a tricky thing. And I think, if you can think like, how would you communicate if you were landing on another planet and you had to, somehow, some way communicate with a new species? You have no idea. You can reasonably assume it doesn't speak, English, Spanish, or any Earth language, right? Let's say that. But it's, it's like, one is like, how would you approach the issue of communication, right? And like, I think I was also writing down some notes. You'd mentioned it's like a space capsule. I have an exercise I do with people regarding this from a while back. I used to know what was on it. I'll have to look it up, but they sent that capsule into space with very specific things, like what you were mentioning with the physics, right? But it was also very specific sounds. And I have to remember what some of them are, but there were a couple. Like, one is like a human heartbeat, I remember, and the other was, I think it was like babies laughing or crying or something like to this effect. And it's interesting, the history of it. They sent this out in like the 1970s,
Yeah.
and but it was an international group of people, to my knowledge, who were like, what is it that not represents the United States or this or that, but like humanity, or because even some of the sounds, I think one was like wind, or like there was weather of sorts, right? So they're like, what? And it's not that they nailed it or they got it right, but it is interesting. There was an attempt at one point in history that if we need to communicate or make contact or share, basically communicate, that's what it boils down to, right? With an unknown entity, what would we share? And I think that's still an incredibly useful exercise today. I think it'd be great. This just popped in my head. That's why I'm looking so funny. It's like, why don't we just as Earthlings, right? Why don't we in some way, some form, send a space capsule with what we feel, and what a 2021 represents humanity, and next year we'll do it again. But then we kind of measure over time. But if there was, even if we did it symbolically, and this is where it comes in for exercises and activities you can do with groups, is like, what would you include, and give it limitations, right? Let's say you can only give 4 sounds, or you can give 4 images, or you can give, or whatever the number may be, but then to ask them why, and what purpose. And this is where the curiosity comes in the question asking process. But now that's where my mind's going after listening to you as well, is thinking like, what could we take how can we take this question and create meaningful activities or learning experiences from it? And I think just figuring out what would we share from Earth to communicate with others, I think is a fun, very even simple place, powerful place to start for future thinking and actions.
Yeah, that's I do agree
Mhm.
with most of your comments, and maybe I will add this on top of that. One of the questions, or what are the issues with thinking in ourselves as a species,
Mhm.
actually in the last 5 years have changed the scientific community had really hard. And it's that we as a human species with the Homo sapiens, most of the time we were thinking that we were the only human species on the planet,
Mm.
like forever. But based on recent discoveries,
Mhm.
and I'm talking 2015, no, I'm not
Mhm.
talking 100 years, no, I'm talking 5 years ago,
Yeah.
we found that the Homo sapiens actually was one species living in the surface of the planet 75,000 years ago. But at the same time, the Homo, what's the other name?
The
Uh,
Neanderthal or the
the
yeah.
Neanderthal, they
Yeah.
were living at the
Yeah.
same time.
Mhm.
And I'm here. I'm taking my professorship here. Yeah, I'm taking. Yeah, you guys, we are in a classroom. You can see the. If you remember our biology class, we have the family, we have the phylum, we have the species, and that's the reason we are Homo sapiens.
Yeah.
And yes, and you have the Homo neanderthal,
Yeah.
different species, same family. But for some reason that we don't have the answer yet, but we'll have it. Uh, the Homo sapiens were the prevalent species in the
Mhm.
planet. But at some point of our history, we were not just one, maybe
Mhm.
two, three, four species. Now we have the proof that we at least two. Uh,
Mhm.
and I was thinking yesterday that I was taking some notes because actually it's something that I'm reading. Or the last weeks, I'm quite interested in this topic. It's how the constitution of my country, for example, will
Mhm.
looks like. Hey, this is a country where the base of society is the family. Okay, the Homo sapiens family of the Homo Neanderthal family.
Yeah.
Which one? And
Uh,
go thinking in our own species and
mm,
getting now the knowledge that 75,000 years ago, actually, we were two Homo species in the planet.
mm,
And for some reason, the other species totally disappeared from the planet. And what was the kind of relationship and communication that we established to each one at some point of our history, and how and what can we learn
mm,
if we are so brave enough to take a spaceship and go to another planet,
mhm.
and maybe just if we think in the very simple process of, and I will use a word that is that is from our species, the landing, very simple. Hey,
Uh-huh.
very simple. I will just my spaceship and I will land in another planet. What if the species in another planet are ants?
Yep.
You just kill like
Oh, yep.
millions of ants.
Yep.
That's the thing that if we think in terms of space, if we
Mm,
think in terms of astrophysics, uh, I think, and it is a personal opinion, we are not ready yet to take that endeavor
mm,
because we don't, we do not understand the level of respect that we need to have
mhm,
in terms of communication between species. How often do you walk by the street and you put your foot, you put your sneaker on top of a species,
mhm,
some kind of a species. You don't know if this one maybe is the ruler of another planet, and that's really hard actually to get to know. Even the mission that is now on Mars tried to get some stuff, and you have guys like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. Hey, we maybe we find another planet that we can create another city or another world. Or I don't know, but moving beyond that, moving beyond the 1 million planets that are
mhm,
just in our own galaxy that share the same conditions of the planet Earth,
mhm,
we have to be very careful. Of course, it's really hard to say for sure that, oh my God, there's life on other planets, but getting prepared in a mental way is really hard because it's not just about conquering another planet. It's about being able to communicate in some way that we do not get to alter or to shake the physics of the space, because
mhm,
we are so tiny in the space that if we use math to explain the stuff, we are the zero to the left. you know
mhm. Mhm.
that yeah, it's so tiny in the immensity of space, but at the same time our brain is getting powerful and powerful and powerful with each generation, that at some point we'll be able not just to visit another planet but to live on
Yeah.
another planets, and that's a question, and I think it's beyond not just the simple question. I think it's the trigger to maybe another uh, field of study in the
Mhm.
future, another field of I will say is the next anthropology,
Yeah.
because it's the
Yeah.
interstellar anthropology.
Interstellar
But
anthropology. Yeah.
yeah, that's some kind of stuff. That's my thoughts, Matt.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. Yeah. And it keeps coming back to this idea of communication too. Um,
Mm,
and then as you're talking about humans getting, and you just put a different thought, less intergalactic and more earthbound, but similar to what you're saying about just this evolution of humans, like, as we get smarter and smarter and learn more and more, we'll be able to, do this in the future. It was a different place. I remember, I'm trying to think of where it came from, but they were discussing about communication in the future with future humans. And what they meant was, and it's really interesting because they're talking about stuff like nuclear waste, for example, radioactive waste. The issue with it is it's going to be dangerous, like currently. Like, and don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of nuclear power. Like, it's really the safest, technically, it's the best energy we have, and potentially in the
it
future.
is.
But currently, and the future nuclear power plants, my understanding is they can be waste free. There's a way they can dispose of them. But currently, we have this radiation, right? That we have to dispose of, and we put it in places. But the issue is it's going to be dangerous for, now correct my math on this, but thousands of years, if not like tens of thousands of years, right? So what the issue could potentially be is, what if something happens where we've got this, it's safe now, right? Safe, right? But they're in storage, we have signs everywhere, danger, nuclear waste, we have the radioactive signs, the stickers that there's no language involved, it's universal, right? The radioactive sign, we know. But again, we're talking scale of thousands or tens of thousands of years. What happens in, let's say, 500 years from now, let's say 700 years from now, an asteroid hits the earth and humanity kind of wipes out, but then it has to rebuild. And over a few thousand years, we caveman days, and we get back and we're starting to progress again. But we run into, or humans run into, where they're storing this stuff, right? And maybe, and the idea is that language will evolve over time, that we'll forget. Remember, like in Europe, the Middle Ages, or the right, where we lost all this knowledge, right? We could potentially lose the knowledge. And then how do we prevent future humans or other things? I mean, in any number of scenarios, but the idea, it's a thought exercise. It's like, so what if you had a scenario where you had to warn humans 10,000 years in the future, and or 100,000, it doesn't matter how far. The idea of that exercise is they can't speak any of the languages we currently have today. They don't understand any of our memes or any of our symbols or any of these things that we currently have today. So you have to come up with a brand new way to communicate with some human 10,000 years in the future. And again, there's no right or wrong answer, but the activity is interesting because you do it and then explain why. And the value isn't in the answer, it's in the explanation of why you made those decisions. But it also kind of uncovers, like, what is communication, and you can look for gaps, or not gaps, but opportunities to learn how to be a better communicator. But it is and not even to put you on the spot, I'm not going to say you have to create it now, but it is interesting. If you had to make a warning sign for like nuclear, waste, people 10,000 years in the future, or even aliens 10,000 years in the future, what would it be? It doesn't have to be a sticker, like, but it has to, they can't necessarily plug in. It doesn't necessarily, like, how, like, what kind of material will it be made out of? Like, will some biodegrade? Will it fade? Will water damage? Like, all these different things that you have to go into it, but it's a fun activity. Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree. And communication is so powerful concept behind this question,
Mm-hmm.
and the why, and why something, no?
Yeah.
Because when you are working with students, so we these, hey, how many stuff do you what type of things do you take with you, what will be the message that you will deliver to another species,
Mhm.
and then you ask the why. The why will puts you in a very very lighty spot, uh, where maybe you don't know the answer, and the most likely scenario is that you won't.
Yeah.
But at some point, your brain, and maybe you will feel like a pain here in your cortex,
Yeah.
and you know that, oh yeah, there's something I don't know in order to answer the question. And guess what? That's the curiosity inside of your brain
Mhm.
working so hard,
Mhm.
telling you that you need something else. You need to try something else to be able to answer the question.
Mhm. Mhm.
And being a little practical here, because we are just getting to the end of the show today, it's when you're using these questions that are so open, at the same time so hard to answer, trust in your guts, because your guts will take you to experimentation, to assumptions, to test, to
Mhm.
try it out. And that's the curiosity. And as you said before, is not to get the final answer, is to get into the process of creating some stuff, some ideas, some processes, some concepts, maybe concepts, and for sure is creating concept that we don't have yet, in order to approach to something that we don't know yet that actually exists.
Yes. Yep.
And that's not just for our future generations, that works for ourselves actually
Mhm. Mhm.
today. um, when we are traveling to another country, when we are getting into a new job, when we are meeting with somebody from another culture, from another neighborhood, so simple. And then you try to scale the concept, you will say, "Oh my God, that's no so simple."
Yeah.
Some people is saying, uh, because the invitation is try to make it today or tomorrow, going to another neighborhood and trying to get to meet with somebody, and
Mhm.
you will find that the communication and the assumptions that you have, at some point you have to rethink
Mhm.
your thinking.
Mhm.
And then I invite you to scale the process, and you say, "Oh my God, what if I go to another country? What if I go to another planet and I am the alien?" you know,
Yeah.
that's so nice. And at the same time, it's an invitation to get very deep in studying the areas that you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to push you to astrophysics or something very crazy elements, but it's a motivation to get really deep in
Mhm.
the stuff that you like, that you want, that you would like to share with
Mhm.
another species when you are the alien. Because something that is for sure, and this is based on the evolution theory,
Mhm.
at some point in the future, we will be the aliens of somebody.
Yeah. So you might as well prepare now for it, right? And yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so powerful.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's an interesting topic, man. Yeah, I would love to hear your final thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, it's I have a lot of I have
No,
a
but
lot of final thoughts. No, there's just like so many more questions. Like this is a hard one to contain in half an hour, right? And it's just one thing is just to keep in mind, like the why you mentioned the why before. Is like, what if you were an alien? one of the first thoughts I had thinking of this about this question was like, well, why would you be visiting that other planet, right? Or what would you hope to learn from visiting,
Mm.
a planet that no humans have ever been to before, or where you were the alien? So I think that would be kind of interesting, and also just the idea that anytime you're innovating or learning, you're technically an alien, right? You're alien to the information you're about to
To nail
discover.
it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just in going back to what would you prepare? What would you do? How would you, if prepare going to another planet? How would you do similar things for learning or innovation? Yeah.
Yeah, Matt. So interesting, so nice. I think it's a very strong concept.
Yeah.
Our show today, and oh my God, I love it, and I hope you guys that you are watching this video on YouTube or Facebook, please don't hesitate
Yeah.
to write us and write an email or send us a message. We'll be more than happy to explore
Yeah.
not just the space, but let's get to explore the curiosity, and because the curiosity will take you to anywhere, And so, thank you, Matt. Thank
Yeah.
you for being here. Don't forget, if you're watching this video, to subscribe to YouTube, of course. And we'll see you in the next chapter.
Thanks again, Nestor. Great speaking with you.
Yes, as usual.